thought, wow, I love this place. Have you ever walked through a great city and thought, wow, I love this place? Places that are unique and interesting. Places where you feel like grabbing a drink and sitting down to enjoy yourself. Places you purposefully go to on vacation. Places that are memorable. And of course, there are urban places that are miserable. Places you go to only if you have to. Places you leave as soon as you can. Places that are forgettable. What is it that makes some places great and others, well, not? One key factor is what urban planners call a sense of place. When you get it right, you know it. And when you get it wrong, you end up feeling like you're in no place at all. When you're somewhere with a strong sense of place, it feels unique. The Great Market Square in Bruges doesn't.
This is like, maybe this is mean, but this is the reason why, like, I don't want to move to Texas. There's so much of Texas that is just like, that looks nothing. That just looks like nothing. And it's just roads as far as the eye can see. And it's completely flat ground with gigantic roads everywhere. And like the only area that's not the case is like some small areas of like Austin and some small areas in like Dallas. And everything else is terrible. It's fucking terrible. As a Texan, it is a lot of empty space. I can confirm. Every time I visited, like I visit for the friends, I do not visit for the place. I'm like, this is not, no. I actually don't like staring at fucking stroads all day and all night. It's not very fun. We need to give Texas back to Mexico. That'll honestly fix Texas. It would. Texas POV, you drive 20 minutes to a strip mall, hang there for 20 minutes, get in your car to go to the other side of the street because there are no sidewalks or crosswalks to get to the other side of the strip mall. Dude, I remember the first experience I had like out of New York. Like, this is truly like culture shock for me. I was hanging out with a friend and we parked in like a strip mall. It was like a big one. Like giant parking lot. And we go in to get like some item in like the grocery store or whatever. And there's another store in the strip mall that we want to go to. And I'm like, okay, let's walk over. And they're like, no, let's just drive over. And I'm like, but we drove to get here and now we're going to drive to go around as well. And they're like, yeah, there's no crosswalk over there. And it's like, who fucking built this shit? Who built this shit? Fucking terrible, dude. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I forget that you're a New Yorker. Do you miss parts of it? Dude, I miss the city so much. It feels wrong to drive to a parking lot and then drive to a different part of the parking lot. That it doesn't feel right. Like it goes against my soul, you know? Feels like an atrocity against God.
Of place, it feels unique. The Great Market Square in Bruges doesn't look like Santorini's Ia Street, which doesn't look like Rocio Square in Lisbon. That makes it hard to generalize about great places, but still, there are a few characteristics that most of these places share that can give us an idea of how to build better urban places. The first is a sense of enclosure. Some planners think of spaces like city squares and streets as public rooms, and to make a room, you need walls. There are no hard and fast rules for enclosure for streets, but one rule of thumb that's often mentioned in urban planning documents is to have no more than a 3-to-1 ratio of street width to building height, or the other way around, and no more than 6-to-1 for public squares. And for what it's worth, many of the best examples of great streets do have this kind of ratio, and many of the best examples of terrible streets don't. That being said, there are examples where this doesn't fit at all. St. Peter's Square in the Vatican definitely has a great sense of place, but it's also very wide with about a 12-to-1 ratio of width to height, though it does have an obelisk to break it up in the middle. Of course, these extreme cases only work when they don't have cars in them. This would entirely lose its sense of place with Toronto's Highway 401 running through it, which would actually fit, though you'd have to bulldoze the basilica. Regardless, feeling like you're in a specific public room helps define an area's sense of place and makes it distinct from other places nearby. If you're on a particularly wide street or large square, there are other ways to create a sense of enclosure. Planners might use trees on the sides or in the median of a road, or
I fucking love that shit. There is nothing I like more in urban planning. Nothing gets me more bothered, hot and bothered,
of enclosure.
than this.
Planners might use
Streets that plant trees so you can have shit. First of all, it's gorgeous. It's so pretty to look at. It is so pretty to walk down a street and there's just trees as far as the eye can see. Like, it's just gorgeous planning. But second of all, it's like effective planning too, because even if it's really, really, really hot,
Does a sub get you more or less hot and bothered than urban planning?
urban planning is like, it's at the top. But thank you, All Fathom, for the 30 months. Thank you. Oh my God. All that shaded pavement, like, dude, it not only is it efficient planning because you have a lot of shade for your pedestrians who have to walk around in the heat, but it's also pretty. Like, it even if you hate nature, this is still pretty to look at. Also, it's better for dogs to walk on too. I didn't even think about that. If you're walking your dog, you don't have to feel like guilty or anything because all the street is shaded. The tree tunnel is the most magical thing to walk or drive through, especially in fall. I know.
use trees on the sides or in the median of a road, or awnings and banners. There are lots of examples of these kind of places that I travel through on a regular basis. Here on Apollolaan in Amsterdam, this street has an extremely wide right-of-way, but there's only one lane for cars, and the line of trees breaks up the space into multiple places, making it feel more inviting. Trees that grow out enough to touch each other are called a kissing canopy, and this can be used to give a place a roof. These are some of the most cozy
It's so fucking sexy, dude. Oh my God.
streets you'll find anywhere. There are actually lots of creative ways to create enclosure. At the market and Dolat Square in Zagreb, they use matching umbrellas as a sort of makeshift roof. And Rotterdam really took the whole enclosure thing literally when they built this enormous covered market. In car-dependent suburbia, the wide open spaces don't contribute to a sense of enclosure, and you don't have a sense of where the place you're in begins or ends. Ultimately, it's hard to give an area a sense of enclosure when there needs to be ample free parking. This makes everywhere feel like one sea of mediocrity. As you travel through these areas, every place feels like every other place. What makes this crappy strip mall any different from this one thousands of kilometers away? They feel like the same place.
Sorry, but like I just saw like the descriptions for the areas and I wasn't looking at it before. Fake London, Canada.
This makes everywhere feel like one sea of mediocrity. As you travel through
Anywhere in the US. He's not wrong, dude. He's not wrong.
these areas, every place feels like every other place. What makes this crappy strip mall any different from this one thousands of kilometers away? They feel like the same place, which is to say, no place. At least this one in LA has palm trees, but it still sucks.
Yeah. LA is a little bit better about like planting trees and parking lots. Like I've been to some parking lots that aren't as depressing. Like a lot of parking lots in like Burbank, the Burbank, like Glendale, Pasadena area. There's lots of trees and there's lots of shade. They tried. It's still depressing to be in a parking lot. Like parking lots suck. I don't care what anyone says. Parking lots are terrible. I hate them. They're so pedestrian unfriendly. When you leave your car to go to the store, first of all, the walk is just so long. I didn't experience this emotion until I lived somewhere where you had to drive a car. Yesterday I went on a fucking like 2-mile hike, and then I walked for like another like 5K steps or some shit. I was walking like crazy. I mean, I fucking grew up in New York, so like we walk everywhere, you know? I have never wanted to walk less than walking in a parking lot. There's just something that's like depressing about it. Walking from your car, which is all the way over here, to like the fucking Best Buy, it's just depressing. I would rather walk like double or triple the distance on a nice sidewalk with trees and stuff. It's just it's so depressing. There's no way to measure progress because it's all the same. Yeah. Even just parking in one gives me anxiety. I know. Climate Town's video on parking lots. Did we watch this one? Oh my God, did we not watch the Climate Town video? We have to watch this. Oh my, we're watching this next. I feel like industrial settings, monotone colors with only like logos and color on the, with color during walks too makes you want to buy things more. Capitalist tool. It's just sad.
This lack of place is why standing in a parking lot like this feels so depressing. Places with lots of surface parking.
Oh my God, look at them. Like, do you know, parking here and then having to walk all this distance to whatever this is, home and pharmacy, like a CVS or something, like, I don't know, some drugstore. It's the worst. This is the worst walk of your life. It's the longest walk you will ever walk in your life. We don't even have a crosswalk for pedestrians in my strip mall that I work in. That is fucked up.
Lots totally lose their sense of enclosure and end up feeling
it's like a
lifeless
Walmart, probably.
and empty. Of course, the cars and asphalt everywhere don't help either. Compare this suburban shopping area in my hometown to this recently renovated downtown street in the same city. And to be clear, this doesn't have to be a downtown versus suburbs thing. This street and this street are the same distance from their respective city centers, but one is designed primarily for people while the other is designed primarily for cars. So one is an interesting and memorable place, while the other is a car sewer surrounded by a sea of asphalt. With a strong sense of place, you'll also have eye-level interest, or what normies call stuff to look at. If the street is a public room, this is what goes on the walls. There are shop windows, stalls, outdoor cafes, and public art. This is where little details can make a really big difference. When you're on foot, you really notice things like the mosaic facade on the Café Biard in Paris, or the intricate concrete details on the Diamant House in Prague. You're not going to notice this stuff when driving. Compare that kind of visual interest to a typical suburban facade. This looks like the walls of a prison.
So sad. It's not so dealer. Thank you for the gift of to film. Thank you. This is like the perfect place to like do some meth. This is it. That's what I'm gonna say. Okay, really quickly, Chad. I gotta say something. Okay, I used to live in a place, and there was like a supermarket literally right next to me. Okay, like. I just had to walk like a block around to get to the supermarket. But you want to know what? The journey to get into the supermarket took like 15 to 20 minutes. So like, it's like a 5-minute walk across the block. And then you have to wait at a Strode for like another like 5 minutes. Okay? And then after you cross that Strode, you have to walk through the entire fucking parking lot, and then you get to enter the supermarket. It's literally on the next street over. The parking lot it couldn't be closer to me. Like, the supermarket literally could not be closer. But because of Strode's and because of parking lots, it's a 20-minute walk to get to the front of the grocery store. Because you have to do this unbelievably long walk around the parking lot, around the building structure, and then you get to it. I lived across from a Walmart on one of the most dangerous roads in the country, and it was a 20-minute trip to cross the street. Yep. Uh-huh. It's so fucked up, dude.
If you're unlucky enough to have to walk next to this, you'll get to look at cigarette butts and cheap aluminum siding. Most people don't want to live in a room that looks like this. So why would we want to be constantly surrounded by places that look like this? Another element of great places is entrance frequency, the number of other places you can access from a street. You want to be able to stop off at a variety of businesses at regular walkable intervals. The best example of this done wrong is suburban power centers like this one. The entrances to these places are so far apart that most people get back in their cars and drive to them.
This is what we were talking about earlier.
Entrance frequency is also really important for public squares and plazas. If you want to go to a place, you have to be able to get to the place. Dolat Square, the one with the umbrellas, is a fully enclosed area, but there are multiple entrances. Those entrances connect to nearby streets and public transit options. But if this were built in suburbia, you'd need to completely surround this plaza with parking like...
Oh my god, I'm gonna fucking vomit. This is so ugly. This is so ugly. And this is exactly why malls suck, by the way. I am convinced malls only suck because of the parking lots. Cars are the worst invention, TBH. People were not meant to drive to work, to school, to the doctor. Driving should be something that you only do if you want to, like, go off-roading or something. Or you're, like, on a road trip, like you're doing it to vacation. We should have good enough trains that you want to take the train to school, you want to take the train to work, you want to take the train to hang out, you want to take the train to go shopping. Like, malls are just driving to a walkable city. It's literally true. It's literally true. It's completely accurate. Why have a bunch of, like, storefronts right next to each other and build, like, a good city? Why do that? Why bother doing that when you can just build malls?
At a shopping mall. All of a sudden, it's harder to get there unless you drive your car, and your sense of place is erased. What seems like a more attractive place to hang out, this or this? See, when a city considers a sense of place, it has to make choices about what the place means. What are the city's values? What are its unique attributes? How does it serve the community? Defining a sense of place means defining your own identity. Are you a city that values dining and cafe culture? Or maybe you used to be an industrial city, but you're reshaping your identity with art. Are you a city that takes pains to preserve its history? Or is your city rapidly modernizing? How you design a place is how you design your identity. This place says nothing about identity except that they value cars more than they value people. One of the few examples of a strong sense of place in most US and Canadian cities are ethnic enclaves like Chinatowns, Little Havana in Miami, or Old Quebec City, which immigrants use to recreate the unique places of their home countries. And those places have been...
It's so sad, but, like, literally everything in America that's great, we just stole it. We abused somebody else's labor to get it. Like, so fucked up.
Been kept this way for tourism purposes because people want a sense of place. Since they're in North America, however, these places still cede way too much space to car traffic, but they're generally better than other nearby areas. To recreate the sense of place from the towns they're based on, they have frequent entrances to specialty shops and restaurants, street level details that are specific to that area, and a sense of enclosure that separates them from the world outside. The walls of the public room are decorated and interesting to look at, and you can't mistake them for any other place in the same city. This is what it looks like when you're specifically designing with a sense of place in mind.
Also, I went to this Chinatown in LA. It is so cute. It is so, I wanted to stay there. I was so sad that I had to go back home. It was adorable. It was so nice.
Though even great places can start to lose their distinctiveness when they become the same as everywhere else. For example, it's hard to guess where you are if a place becomes filled with the same chain stores as every other place. Paris is famous for its unique streets and architecture and what planning experts call Frenchiness. I'm sure that's the technical term. But the Champs-Élysées is starting to become more generic as major brands move in, which risks turning this unique place into just another mall. This is why Amsterdam has been recently controlling the types of shops that can open in the city center. Sorry, Five Guys will need to open somewhere else.
Also, like,
So of course,
it is a crime to have a city that pretty, but the only food available is fucking Five Guys. It's so fucked up. It's just
the 17th century canal ring of Amsterdam has a strong sense of place. There's nowhere quite like it, which is why it's flooded with tourists from all over the world and most locals avoid it. But it sure was nice during the coronavirus lockdowns. But really, almost every place I visit in Amsterdam has some sense of place. All of these places feel unique and different, and I've noticed a very remarkable difference in how I navigate here. In North America, I think about streets and roads. My mental map is based on major streets and cardinal directions. But in Amsterdam, I think about places. I'm in one place and I think about all the places I need to pass through in order to get to another place. My mental map is full of the best routes from one place to another, and I think about the city as a series of unique places. This strong sense of place makes the city mean something to me. I actually care about these places and I like being in them. There's a common response I get when showing video from car-dependent places. People say, this looks just like where I live, but I know it's not. Because when you design a place for cars, everything starts to look the same. This could be anywhere. And after living somewhere like this, I'll never be able to go back to car dependency. Because a place that could be any place is no place at all. I'd like to thank my supporters on Nebula and Patreon who pay me to
must be nice to live somewhere that isn't car dependent. I wish I could live somewhere that wasn't car dependent. Our lives could be so much better. I know. I can't imagine shilling for fucking